Wait, I need to test this out again. Dude, that is weird. I'm literally not even touching the controller. That is insane, dude. What? Alright, so most people know what this thing is. It is the Xbox Series X. It is the fastest console at the moment. But this thing right here is my mini PC. It is 3D printed and comes in at about half the size. Today, I want to find out which one is better. Which one is faster, which one has the best graphics, what has the better overall experience, console versus PC. Now, of course, there's going to be a little bit of natural bias here because this entire channel is about gaming PCs, and this thing right here is my own little creation. And yeah, I do have a bit of an obsession with tiny optimized systems, but for that same reason, I am far from a console hater, especially the Xbox Series X. In fact, I actually wish that gaming PCs were more like this thing, both the CPU and GPU on a single chip. Then you've got a simple but really effective thermal design with one big fan at the top, everything simply air cooled, and then it's all packed inside this nice matte black box. And then in the other corner, we got this thing here, the 3D printed 3.6 liter gaming PC with an internal GPU and power supply. This thing is absolutely tiny. I made it in a previous video, had an absolute blast making it, and after a few changes since that video, it is now looking actually pretty decent. The case is way stiffer than before. I've dialed in a few of the tolerances, and I've now printed it in this ABS filament from Polymaker. They have a few different colors in this ABS Galaxy range, which I personally think looks amazing. It's exactly what I had in mind for this super tiny and fun build. You could also just print the whole thing in white or black if you want more of that cleaner, minimal console look. All of the files for this thing, by the way, are linked down below, including the entire Fusion 360 project if you want to make some changes. As for the specs, it is still running an i5-13400F and an RTX 4060. All up, you could build this exact system for about $850 US, which is not bad at all as far as gaming PCs go with all new parts. That is almost double the price of the Xbox Series X though, which you can grab for $500 US, which I think is a pretty good deal. Microsoft apparently sell these at a loss and then recoup their earnings through accessories, games, software subscriptions like Game Pass, which I'll also add is extremely good value. For like $11 a month, you get access to a pretty solid game library. I'll also mention the setup process here for each one is a massive difference. The Series X, you literally unbox, make an account, do a software update, and that's it. The PC, on the other hand, you have to build, update the BIOS, set the correct memory speeds and fan curves, and then install Windows before you can do anything else. Not to mention for this one, also 3D print it. The ultimate question is though, is all of that extra time and money worth it when it comes to performance? Well, I really hope so, because I honestly do not know what happens next. I do know for a fact that the GPU in the Xbox Series X is a bit more powerful than the 4060 that we have in the PC, believe it or not. But then of course, PC games are updated a lot more often, and you've got a lot more flexibility when it comes to the settings and stuff like that. So really, it is anyone's guess. But yeah, both machines here using HDMI 2.1 to be plugged into the 4K 240Hz OLED from ASUS. And yeah, we're basically just gonna swap between the inputs and take a look at which performs better. So we're starting off with Apex Legends here. I mean, just booting up the game, jumping into the firing range here, looks like we're running at 60 FPS. So this is the basic mode before we've touched any settings. It's funny, I can actually feel the controller and the input like actually moving without doing anything. I guess this is my first experience with proper console aim assist. I don't know, it just feels really weird to have the joystick aiming for me without even doing any inputs. Man, that is actually kind of funny. Wait, I need to test this out again. Dude, that is weird. I'm literally not even touching the controller. That is insane, dude. What? It is actually scaring me how powerful the aim assist is. So yeah, I guess the most insane thing about Xbox versus PC here is the aim assist that you get on console. It is absolutely broken. Okay, you know what? Let's actually change to the 120 Hz mode. So we go into settings, we go into video, then we change the graphics mode to performance, and then I've got the FOV slider up to 110 as well. So I guess let's see if this makes an impact. Now, one thing that I saw reading from some of the comments and the opinions of the 120 Hz mode, kind of complaining about the visual quality and like how much worse the visual quality is with this performance mode. But I've got to say, it's really not that bad. I mean, it's definitely lower resolution. It's definitely a little bit softer, but I mean, the input is so much better at 120 Hertz. Like if you go back and forth between them, if you're someone who actually prefers 60 Hertz, like, I don't know, that panning just looks terrible. So the question is, can we get better than 60 FPS at native 4K in the firing range on the PC. If we can, then the performance is simply better. So by default, I've got everything set to low, and we were getting more than 60 FPS, but let's say we go to like medium, which is probably closer to what the Xbox Series X has. We've got 110 FOV, 4K native. Instead of 60 FPS on the Series X, we are getting 75 to, yeah, in some cases, 80 FPS. And yeah, I guess the simple thing is, we are getting more performance here than we were on the Series X. So what happens then if we drop to 1440p, which is a little bit closer to, say, the performance mode, the 120Hz mode on the Series X? Let's see what kind of frame rates we get. We're up to 170, 180 frames per second. Damn. I think if we were to like play a proper game, see abilities and whatnot, we would probably see some drops down to like 120-ish. Yeah, for the most part, it is nice not being capped at just 120 Hz on the Series X. But let's swap back to the Series X. Next up, we have Starfield, which I have yet to actually play. Let's see whether I'm going to play it on the Series X or the PC. Now, according to Digital Foundry, this game uses FSR 2 from AMD to upscale from 1440p to a 4K output that we see here. And the game actually looks incredibly sharp, but yeah, that is not good at all. So that's 30 FPS, something I haven't seen in a very long time. It's honestly crazy to me how this is deemed an acceptable experience. I guess one thing that is like a little bit relieving to see is a first-person FOV slider. It does make that 30 FPS experience, like, I'm not going to say tolerable because it's still not tolerable for me. Like, I just could not sit down and enjoy this if I'm being completely honest. But the default FOV, it makes that 30 FPS feel 100 times worse. Return to default values. It was actually 85. It was lower. Now, 30 FPS, dude, I cannot see anything. That is unbelievably bad. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's see what the PC can do. High settings. Let's do DLSS upscaling. Yeah, okay, we have DLSS. Balanced preset. Again, the 4060 is technically a lower compute performance than the Series X, which would be comparable to, say, an RX 6700 XT. Again, on the Series X, we were getting 30 FPS. Here we're getting 50 to 55. I guess since we are like uncapping the performance on the PC and just letting it push out as many frames as it can, yeah, the performance is going to be a lot more variable. I think that's something that console developers really don't want to see. They really just want a clean 30 FPS or a clean 60 FPS by the looks of things. And if it can do anything in between, they're just really not interested. It's kind of annoying if you have an expensive TV with variable refresh rate support, like a new LG OLED. You know, even if it can't get up to 120 Hz, if it can do 60 Hz with variable refresh rate, then yeah, there's a lot of performance there that is not being experienced. The other cool thing about the PC is that you can tune the settings to exactly how you want. So instead of the balanced preset for DLSS, let's go for a more aggressive upscaling from the performance mode, which I believe will go from 1080p up to 4K. And let's do, say, medium. And again, you tell me, does the game look that different? I mean, at least for this scene here, yeah, it does not look that different, but it does feel very, very different. We're now up to 78 FPS. Game feels so much more fluid, so much more immersive. Inputs feel amazing. So yeah, I'm just not a fan of this like cinematic, like low frame rate, high fidelity experience on the consoles. This is a first person game where you do want some like pretty fast inputs, some reasonably fluid motion. Next up, we've got Control. Now in this game, apparently there's meant to be two modes. Apparently there's meant to be a ray tracing mode, which targets 30 FPS, and then a performance mode, which targets 60 FPS. It's meant to be right here, if I'm not mistaken, but it's just not. I mean, we've got film grain, we've got motion blur, and that's it. I don't have any other graphics menu options, which is really, really weird. And then judging by the screen space reflections that we can see here as I pan up and reveal the window element, the reflection just magically appears. So yeah, this is not the ray tracing mode. I would say it's definitely playable, you know, 1440p, 60 FPS. I'm not going to be too much of a PC snob and say that's like an unplayable experience. I'm sure with a controller sitting, you know, a few meters away from you, you could definitely play through this and have a pretty decent experience. Again, though, it is just a shame when you don't really get any customization at all when it comes to the settings. Because I mean, we flip over to the PC side of things and have a look at how much customization you have. Probably for the casual user, it's a little bit, you know, overwhelming. Like, you know, what are global reflections? What is, you know, volumetric lighting? But again, you can just choose the quality preset. Do you want low, medium, or high graphics? You can just enable the preset, and then you can just, kind of adjust it depending on how good your PC is and what kind of frame rates you want to achieve. On the console, we had a 1440p internal rendering resolution. Let's just leave that as it is to, be as closely matched as possible. Now, Control is a game which I have played a little bit of on the PC, so yeah, I am quite a little bit further along. It's going to be a little bit of a different area here, but I mean, it's similar enough to compare the performance. Already there is a massive difference. Again, I do have motion blur turned on, but when I toggle it on the PC, it is nowhere near as bad or fatiguing as what I was seeing on the console. That was way overcooked on the Series X. I have no idea why. But next up, we've got Forza Horizon. This is actually a game which I've played a decent amount of on the Xbox Series X. It's been plugged into my LG CX OLED TV at home. So here you've got two graphics modes. You've got the quality mode, which is a 30 FPS mode, and then you've got the performance mode, which is 60 FPS. Apparently there is a bit of dynamic resolution scaling, so it's not like a full native 4K all of the time. But yeah, I mean, 60 FPS, pretty much 4K. I'm gonna say this is one of the better Xbox games out there that I've played. The detail of the cabin, for example, extremely good. I can see all of the stitching, I can see all of the ripples and aliasing. And yeah, 60 FPS in a driving game like this, totally fine. For a bit of casual fun and driving, yeah, Forza Horizon 5 on the Series X, actually pretty decent. So good in fact that I find myself getting a bit distracted and just driving. It's actually hard to imagine that the PC could actually beat that experience, but I guess let's take a look. But it is legitimately better. Both systems here running 4K native resolution. I've got it running high settings here on the PC. Instead of 60 FPS on the console, we're getting almost double, legitimately almost double, 110, 115 FPS. It is objectively going to be a better experience than what you get on the console. Again, just kind of crazy that this is coming from a 4060. I'm not one to hype up the RTX 4060 at all. It's not really an impressive GPU in the current generation of things. To see that it is outperforming an Xbox Series X quite comfortably, yeah, that is something that is pretty shocking. And then we've got Overwatch 2, which is my main game at the moment on the PC. It would be a bit odd not to compare them. On the Series X, this runs at 1440p, 120 Hertz. So if we do pretty much the same thing on the PC, let's do 1440p. Medium is probably close to what the console is running at. And then yeah, instead of 120 FPS, we're getting 300, which is, yeah, quite a big difference. But I mean, here we've got a 4K 240 Hertz screen plugged into the Series X. We're not really able to take advantage of that in this game. Here though, let's give it a little test. So let's go to 4K 240 Hertz. And yeah, we are able to achieve that. 300 FPS, 290. And of course, we have to talk about mouse and keyboard support. Stuff like this, you cannot do on console. You just cannot do that with joysticks. So in an actual match, yeah, we are actually maintaining 4K 240 Hertz here on a 4060. So to be honest, I am pretty surprised at how much this tiny 4060 PC has decimated the Series X. I mean, in some cases we are seeing double the frame rate, which is just shocking, especially when you consider that this thing technically has more GPU horsepower under the hood. I mean, the value is pretty undeniable, $500 for the machine, and then Game Pass as well is just exceptional value, but yeah, in a way, you do get what you pay for.